Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hugnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose. Thanks for downloading another episode of the ThunderCast. You can follow us on Twitter at ThunderCast_pod and listen to the show anywhere you like to listen to your favorite podcast, and watch us on, of course, the ThunderCast YouTube channel. And while you're there, it'd be cool if you click subscribe and that notification bell so you never miss an episode or a special presentation of the ThunderCast. And while we're asking you to do things, share the links with your fellow herd fans, post them on your social medias, and help us grow the listener base. We are continuing to grow year over year, but it's always great when we have new listeners and new folks to interact with and talk herd with, find out about tailgates, and we can have more folks around at game days. This is a lot of fun. The more the merrier, right? Mm-hmm. So let's get into this Marshall football recap. I'm glad we didn't do this last night. I'll put it that way. I'm glad I had a night to sleep on it. I'm still pretty salty about the whole thing, but obviously the emotions of the game have kind of subsided a little bit. Most of the anger and frustration has subsided a little bit, so it's good that we took a day and had a beat and just get to talk about it today. Before we get into all that, I need you to do me a big favor, and let's get some of these bills paid with a word from our sponsors at Leasure Oliver PLLC.
If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com.
Russ, let's just talk about this right out of the gate. Marshall went into Boone, North Carolina, needing one win to secure bowl eligibility against a team that was needing to win their final two games of the season to gain bowl eligibility. So Marshall had the opportunity not only to gain bowl eligibility for themselves, but prevent App State from being able to become bowl eligible in their house, and it couldn't have stacked up better when you look at it on paper. The injury report favored Marshall massively in this one. QB1 was out of the game, wide receiver 1 was out of the game, tight end 1 was out of the game, who was also the fourth leading receiver on the team. Several depth pieces were out of the game for App State, and Marshall had pretty much a full complement of its running game. At least the guys that have been big contributors all season long. Everybody that we needed to have healthy pretty much was healthy. Even Daquan Smith was a game-time decision. He turned into play in the game and turned in an awesome performance, but still Marshall could not get it done. 26-24, Marshall drops now to 5-6, 3-4 in the conference, needing a win on Senior Day against Georgia Southern next week at home to secure bowl eligibility, which now it is not a guarantee that you get a bowl invite. A positive. A win next week, I'm foreshadowing a little bit, or looking ahead a little bit. A win gives you a chance at a winning season, because now you draw even 6-6 with a win against Georgia Southern, a chance at a bowl game, and a chance to go 7-6. If you lose, that's it. Your season's over. And there are some things that are not going to fly in Huntington. I get it's a first-year head coach. There was a lot of new players, a lot of this and a lot of that. Going 3-3 at Joan C. Edwards Stadium is never going to be acceptable. Never. Losing 4 of your final 5 down the stretch is never going to be acceptable. So I don't want to get too far ahead, but now that's what's on the line here next week, because you couldn't take care of business this week. Mm-hmm. Give me your synopsis on the game, a little bit on the weekend, since you made the trip and you were there in Boone, North Carolina. And then I'll get into indicators and stats, and we'll head forth to revisiting keys and grades.
I always love going to Boone, and that was great. The wife and I got to go down there. All the fans were amazing. They greeted us at the tailgates. They talked to us in the hotel. They talked to us in the restaurants. They echoed a lot that you saw that tweet put out by Barstool Mountaineers. So they brought up, the fundraising for after Hurricane Helene, and that we played the fight song and stuff like that. So a lot of it just echoed that, but that was really good. Me with food. I love Boone because it's a great town and it's got great eateries and things. So it was just good all around. Really cold and windy when the sun went down. I don't know if I should talk about the game on the field, but everything else was great. But the final result was not, and we're going to talk about why that was not right here in a minute.
Yeah, I got to bring something up during the tailgates, during the lots, because you were able to meet up with some Herd softball all-timers.
Yeah.
So, Sid Nestor was there. Alex Coleman was there. Ottoman was there. Some superstar players from several years back. If folks that follow our show remember us talking about those teams and what they meant to those teams. So
and
really
also
cool.
we had those three plus Grace Chelleman was our first big interview series with those. So
yeah, that's right. So it was really cool that Sid reached out and said, "Hey, is anybody coming to the game?" And you, of course, were going to the game, and you guys were able to meet up. You posted a picture. It was really cool, awesome moment. It's always great when you get to circle back around. Like, those were some of the first athletes that we interacted with when we started the ThunderCast.
Yep.
So this is like a full circle moment for our show as well. And that was just really cool. So I wanted to bring that up before we got deeper into the football game, but now we're going to get deeper into the football game.
Well, let me also bring up that we were hosted, my wife and I, by Armchair Mountaineers, who Wesley from there was on the Getting to Know show, along with Dominic Cressetto. Also got to spend some time with him of Sunbelt Syndicate. So we had some friendly faces down there showing us around and everything too. Met all four of the guys from Armchair, and great group of guys. Hard to say that one, but they were very accommodating, but also where they have just gotten started. We talked the podcasting game and things like that. So it was just very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And I'm glad, man. One of these days I'm going to be able to make the trip to Boone. I've never been able to go to a game there, and it's an environment, a venue, and a vibe that I want to experience. I think the top two on the list for me right now are making a trip to Harrisonburg and making a trip to Boone. And I want to make that happen sooner rather than later. But let's talk about the game. If you looked at these indicators, you would swear that Marshall won this game. Now, 26-24 is a pretty close margin. But if you looked at this, you would swear up until the very end that this was a Marshall victory. Total yards, 438 to 276 for App. More on that later. Edge Herd. Time of possession was damn near even, 30 minutes, 9 seconds for Marshall, 29:51 for App. Edge Herd. First downs, 23-18, Edge Herd. Third downs, 5 of 12 for Marshall, 6 of 17 for App State. Yeah, App State picked up one more, but percentage-wise, it's Edge Herd. Penalties, 5 of 50 for App State, 6 of 60 for Marshall. So Edge, App State, and now turnovers. 3 turnovers for Marshall, 0 for App State, Edge, App State, and that is absolutely the difference in the game. Now, let's talk about what these guys did in this game. It was a great day on the ground, an unbelievably great performance from Joan Barbie, and we're going to talk about that a little bit deeper here in a little bit. But started with CDRW. He went most of the game, but exited late. We are speculating due to injury, but we don't know how severe. It has to be injury, because why would you come off of the field in that scenario, at that score, with that much time left in the game? So he started and went most of it, 13 of 21 for $146, no touchdowns, and an interception that I can't fully put on him, but it happened. 14 carries for 71 yards and 2 touchdowns on the ground. In relief was Zion Turner. He comes in and goes 8 of 9 through the air for 54 yards, 3 carries for 16 yards, but a very costly fumble. Joan Barbie was the leader in the clubhouse from running backs, 10 carries on the day for 102 yards and a touchdown, 10.2 yards per carry with a long of 23. Antoine Roberts chipped in with 5 carries for 31 yards. That's 6.2 on the ground with a long of 19. And then Michael Allen had 8 carries for 18 yards and another costly fumble. Through the air was Floyd Lacey leading the day, 12 catches for 134 yards with a long of 38. That's good for 11.2 per catch. And DeAndre Tamarez had 5 catches for 42 yards, 8.4 per reception, with a long of 16. Let me give you some notes on this one. I'll give you an opportunity to give me a little reaction to this offensive performance. They did pile up 200 rushing yards on the day, which was pretty good. Still below the average, but that's a pretty good day. They scored 3 first-half touchdowns in a span of about a quarter's worth of time. Mm-hmm. It was, of course, across the tail end of the first quarter and through the tail end of the second quarter, but it was about a 15-minute span. No points whatsoever from this offense in the second half. They fumbled on consecutive drives to end the freaking game, and they only picked up 1 third down conversion in the second half. So it started really great and then went downhill. What you got?
Small correction. They did have a field goal in the second half. They had 3
field
points.
Goal, yes, but the offense scored no points.
I'm sorry. I'm going with total score, but you're right. The offense did not. Special teams did.
That's correct. So any quick thoughts on this offensive performance, or are you saving it for grades?
I'm going to save it for grades, except for I do want to say that when you're looking at these totals, there were some other things that were called back via penalty, which we'll talk about during the grades, but it could have been even more on these for your total yards, your touchdowns, your averages, and that sort of thing.
Defensively for the Herd, quite a big day from the 4 guys we're going to feature. Generally, I mean, sometimes your 4th leading tackler would lead the day and would have in some games this year, but the leader in the clubhouse this week was Jalen Parker, and man, he had a really good game. 15 total tackles, 6 of those solo, 2 sacks, the only 2 sacks for the Herd, and 2.5 tackles for loss. Cam Smith and Daquan Smith, both 10 total tackles apiece. Cam 6 solo, Daquan 5 solo, and then Daryl Sweeting had 8 tackles. That's 4th on the day. That would have led many games, and 5 of those solo. Impact plays for the Herd, not there in the way we needed to see it. 2 sacks on the day, 5 tackles for loss, and 3 passes defended. That is it. They only allowed 276 yards total on the scoreboard or in the box score, but actually that's inflated a little bit. It was 310 yards allowed because App State, trying to squirrel away the game, ended up losing 34 total yards on their own just to run clock and take losses. So you got to take that into account. It's another reason that their rushing yards was lower than it really actually was during meaningful game time. They did, though, have 6 3-and-outs in this game and a 3-and-out, which they also made a stop on 4th down. So not technically a 3-and-out, but 6 3-and-outs and a 4-and-out. Let's call it that. They allowed 175 rush yards to Jakari Lewis to go along with 2 touchdowns. But big positive in this one, a trend was broken. No chunk play touchdowns. Now, they had some fairly long touchdown plays, but they were only 19 yards, so not technically a chunk play touchdown. But you know what I mean when I say that. I mean the 50, 100%. 60, 70-yard touchdown. That disappeared in this game. Special teams. Oh, wait, you got anything you want to say about defense?
Yeah, just when you look up the definition of chunk play 20-plus yards, there were only 3. There was 2 passing and 1 rushing. So 3 total plays, and you're looking at 21, 23, and 20 on the ground. This was a major problem all year long, and I am ecstatic to only give up a 20-yard being your longest and a 23 and a 21 being your 2 longest receptions. That to me is not that's not bad.
It's not bad, and I'm not trying to dump on this defense, but we also were seeing the Herd go against a backup quarterback, missing several big wide receiving weapons, and their run game just hasn't been great over the last month, at least.
Well, I'm not saying let's celebrate that. I'm just saying when you compare the chunk plays that you and I were talking about, 92 yards untouched last week on the second play of the game, 53 yards, 62 yard, all these things that we've seen through the air, to only have a 23 and a 21 yarder be the 2 longest receptions that you gave up. It was a drastic improvement on the secondary from what we've seen, plus the overall passing yards much lower than what we've seen. We were worse on against the run, when all season long this 3-3-5 people keep saying that it's not set up well against the run. We were much better against the run in nearly every game than we were through the air. So it was a much better performance by the defensive backfield in this game.
I'd have to agree, and it's a trend that has to continue this week and coming into Saturday. If it does not continue, the season will be over. Marshall cannot afford to be allowing easy touchdown drives, 1-2 play drives. It just cannot happen. It's killed us all year long. Let's talk special teams real quick. Lorcan Quinn goes 1 of 2 on field goals with a long of 25. He has one blocked in the fourth quarter, and he goes 3 of 3 on extra points. Nathan Totten had just 4 punts on the day for 178 yards, 44.5-yard average, 2 touchbacks, 1 inside the 20 with a long of 57. XTB had 2 kick returns on the day for 50 total yards, 25-yard average. Russ, let's revisit some keys to victory, and then let's get into some grades. What was your number one key to victory in this one?
Number one was to shut down the pass. It's the strength of their offense, and they're seemingly pass happy. And again, this was still talking about with everybody being out. You know, we knew this when we were talking about the keys. I said, Cole's not your typical backup. His stats are better than Swan's. Shut down the pass. He severely limit their offense. I'm giving it a half. I give them that we held them to 134. They did not beat us through the air. They had the one passing touchdown to the tight end in the red zone, which I had warned about.
Yep.
But we did not totally shut them down because, again, they scored on that, and I kind of give it a half. I think it was a very good effort. I lean more toward giving him a green check, but you know how OCD I am. I'm going with a half.
Well, that's fair because there were plays that were made in certain moments of the game that were just big plays. Finding the youngster tight end, they hit him another time to continue a drive. I mean, so it was effective. Look, dude, there's 134 passing yards, but damn if they weren't a really effective 134 yards.
They were. Yeah, and that's why I'm here is basically like, you know, if you look at the overall, they didn't like kill us through the air, especially, like I said, all season long when we've been giving up those chunk plays or we've been giving up 400 some passing yards to Texas State. You know, this was a really good performance, but they did not totally shut down this pass, especially with the wide receiver one being out and tight end one being out. The QB one, again, I thought that Cole was just as good and a little more controlling of the ball with no turnovers coming into this game, but it was the wide receiver options, and they were effective in moving the ball. So,
and something to mention that goes along with not just completing passes is they did a really good job in pass protection. They kept their quarterback clean most of the day. He had time. He was not under duress like we would have liked to see. Early he was, is when they tried to go for it on fourth down. I mean, that was a great bit of pursuit by Marshall. Forced an intentional grounding call. That was really great. But for a lot of the day, he had time to operate. He just didn't have a great completion day. My number one key to victory was you got to exploit the stats in this one. You're talking about a top 20 Marshall rush team against a team that is not good against the rush. We did not even hit our season average, but still we were able to run the ball effectively. The key was going to be – no, I'm sorry. They were a decent rush defense. The key was going to be if CDRW was able to carry over from Georgia State against a worse-rated pass defense.
Yes.
He wasn't. He did not have nearly the day that he needed to have. He misses Floyd Lacey for a wide open touchdown in the end zone. He just seemed off a little bit, and the completion percentage says that. I mean, just 13 of 21. It was not the day that we thought we were going to get, even a little bit better. I mean, you pump that up to around 180 yards. If you get that one completion to Floyd in the end zone, this is a vastly different game. So they just were not able to completely exploit the stats. So for that, they also get a half. What was your number two?
One thing you mentioned there, though, you said we didn't get our rushing yards. We had 238, and we came in just under 207. So we actually did eclipse that.
Wait a minute. What did I Did I jot the numbers wrong?
I think
Maybe I did.
I think where you're talking about passing, our passing was nowhere near
Oh
our
yeah,
season
that's
average.
probably what
Yeah.
it was.
Yeah.
What was your number 2?
Number 2 for me was establish the pass. Kind of going with what you just said here. App's pass defense is porous at times. If we can stretch the defense, it could open up the run. I'm giving us again a half on this because if you look at it, 21 to 30, that's 70% passing, 200 yards, but we had 0 touchdowns and a tipped interception. So 200 yards and 70%, that's pretty daggone good. An interception and not getting a touchdown, and especially overthrowing a wide open one, pretty bad. So I give them right in the middle with a half on it.
Yeah. Fair. My number 2 key to victory was stop the chunk, and they did that. They took away the chunk play touchdown in this one. That is a full check mark, and it's so important that it carried over from last week. What was your number 3?
It was run wild. App's defense is very good on the run, and we have an even better rushing offense. Again, we were 18th in the nation coming into this. Most of the backs are healthy. We need to turn them loose. Coastal and JMU had, I specifically said, 6.0 yards per carry. Both of them had that exact total. Coastal ran for 246, JMU 324. Where did we end up? 6.0, right where they did, and we had 238 yards. So I have to overwhelmingly give us a green check on that on the ground.
My number 3 key to victory was the Herds got to stay disciplined. And I told you that they might be able to get suckered into some PI calls and things like that. They did not. It's 6 penalties for 60 yards, but it's what they were and when they happened.
Yeah.
Specifically, I remember a defensive chop block being called on the field goal drive. Right, there were holding calls that stifled some drives. They were not disciplined enough when they needed to be.
So I went back and tried to find all 6, and I found 5 of them for 55 of the 60 yards. I could not find, because I saw the one with McDuffie that was ineligible downfield, and they declined that. So I don't know if that's what they were counting, the 6 for 60. But let me tell you what you just said to everybody else out here. The chop block was a 15-yard penalty during that field goal drive. It took them from the Marshall 47 down to the Marshall 32, effectively putting them into field goal range. Who knows if they would have gotten in there? They did get even closer before the field goal, but they might not have without that. Meeks had 2 holds. One negated a 23-yard pass down to the 20. That started on the 43-yard line for App territory. So instead of us having 1st and 10 on the 20, it was 1st and 20 on our own 47. Took us 33 yards back. And then the other one that was even bigger, a 19-yard touchdown by Michael Allen, gets called back. That would have obviously decided the game if everything else played out the way it was. That put us, instead of a 19-yard touchdown, 1st and 20 back on the 29. Oh, by the way, that's when we ended up with a blocked field goal. So it took 7 full points off the board. Number 4 was a face mask by P3 on defense, a 15-yard penalty from the Marshall 41 down to the Marshall 26 during the touchdown drive that made it 24-23 to give them the lead. I'm sorry, to bring them within 1 of the lead. And then the other was Jamal Weiss, an offsides. He was lined up in the neutral zone, 5-yard penalty. And instead of 2nd and 3, it was 2nd and 3 instead of 2nd and 8, a drive that ended in a punt. That one was the only one that I found that wasn't massive. The other 4 that we talked about was pretty daggone big.
Yeah, and none bigger than the touchdown coming off the board that eventually leads to a blocked field goal. Yeah. That is absolutely the difference in the game. If that one doesn't happen, of course, I'm not blaming Eric Meeks for but if that doesn't occur, it's a totally different ball game. And what was your number 4?
Number 4 was win the tight end matchup. They utilized the tight end very well. We talked about number 1 being out, but the backups were still getting targeted a lot. I said when we use the tight end, we are wildly successful, but they use them. And in the red zone, and I mentioned 25% of their touchdown passes had gone to a tight end. 1 of 1 went to a tight end. I mentioned that 26.1 of their yards went to tight ends. They won the tight end matchup because we had 3 catches by Toby Payne for 18 yards. David Larkin for them, 4 for 27 and a touchdown. They utilized the tight end better. We talked about this being something to watch for. Red X.
Yeah, and I know you mentioned it, but 3 receptions plus a tipped ball that ends in an interception. Massive play, big turnaround.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they definitely won the tight end battle in that game. Number 4 for me was embrace the suck, that this was going to be a hostile environment, that they were going to have to be prepared for that and play in the moment. And I'll tell you, I don't think the moment was too big for them. I don't think the venue was overwhelming in any way, but right out of the gate, it looked like Marshall was not taking this team seriously. They were flirting around, and it just didn't look like they were on the attack early until they scored that first touchdown. And then we ripped off, 3 touchdowns. And then in the second half, more of the same.
Yeah.
It was more of the same until it went really bad in the last half of the fourth quarter. So huge X.
Before we get to the grades, I have one more thing that didn't really fall into this that I want to talk about, and this is the second to last offensive play that we had in the game. Okay. There's a minute 13 to go in the game. It's 2nd and 6 on the Marshall 46. The line to gain is the App 48, so just over midfield. We throw to a wide open Toby Payne. He catches it on the 45. I don't know if he was looking to try to get out of bounds or to maybe avoid a tackle and get extra yards by bouncing outside. So he caught the ball 3 yards past the line to gain, but he made a football move. Yeah, so you can't give forward progress. He gets tackled all the way back at the 45, and that sets up 3rd and 1. What else did it do? If a minute 13 when the clock starts, I don't know what it was when he went down, but had he gone down past the line of scrimmage or line to gain, that was going to be a stop the clock as they move the chains. You don't have to burn a timeout necessarily there. Now it's 3rd and 1. The clock's ticking. We were forced to give one of our timeouts, which was huge when they got the ball back. Yep. Had we had an additional timeout, they would have been forced to punt.
Yep.
Yeah. And we also would have had the first down. We would have been closer to Lorcan Quinn's territory. It was pivotal. And at that time, Joshawn Barbie, up until that timeout, had been the back on that drive the entire time. We took him out, put Allen in. I'm not saying Allen was due a fumble. Barbie wouldn't have fumbled because we'll get into this in a minute. But that changed everything. And in the press conference after, Coach Gibson said, had we gotten that first down and not had to call the timeout, it also wouldn't have been 3rd and 1. We wouldn't have had that play call. So it would have been, they probably would have kept trying to pass down the field, out routes, get out of bounds, get more yards, maybe get us in field goal position. That is key. And again, just like you're not blaming Meeks, I'm not blaming Toby Payne. The dude stood up immediately, knew what he did, and said, I screwed up. He patted himself. You can see he was just like, man, but he was trying to make a play, trying to get out, get more yards for us, get out of bounds, whatever. It just did not work out. I'm not blaming him. That is just one of these things that set up how this game ended.
Yeah, this was a collection of small mistakes that magnified into a larger outcome that was, negative for the Herd. And I remember I was actually going to talk about that play when we were going to do the offensive grade, but here's as good a time as any. And I remember watching that and thinking to myself, of all the times that, Payne has made a move or been able to make a play in a clutch moment, this is like the time you go down. You just fall down. Because he was beyond the sticks. He retreated back behind the sticks. And I'm thinking, oh, no. Now we're set up on a 3rd down. We haven't converted one all second half. We finally convert it, but we don't because it leads in a fumble, and that's the end of the game. And I'm thinking, man, you just picked up the first down. You don't have that much farther to go to where you feel pretty confident that you can uncork Lorcan and Quinn to try to win this game.
Well, that put him on the 45-yard line if he catches it and immediately just falls down. They said that he was hitting, this was the announcers said that he was hitting 65. So that's from the 48. So he was already, we're first down. We've got over a minute left in this thing, and you would have all 3 timeouts. You also have the benefit to spike because you've got a first down, you've got a down to burn. You could have spiked it here, saved 3 timeouts, and then you're from the 45 trying to get how far more can we get and run this clock down, make them use their timeouts so we can get a field goal. It was a massive change to the game, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's easy to say that might be like the pivotal game or the pivotal play in the game because you still had an opportunity up until that point. All right, let's get into some grades then. We played 2, so we got to talk about the collective quarterback grade. What do you got?
Well, I actually split them out, if that's all right. I've got CDRW I got for a C+, and 14 carries for 71 yards, 2 touchdowns. That has a lot to do with this grade. I didn't want him to be our leading rusher on attempts. I think we've talked about that enough. But the results of 2 touchdowns on the ground, 14 carries, 71 yards, that's good. What was bad was even on these throws that were receptions, he was high a lot. The receivers had to catch it with a jump instead of hitting it with their feet on the ground. They had to come down. That allowed people time to get up to them, make tackles or attempted tackles. He overthrows a wide open Lacey, and it was not just off the fingertips. Floyd had to jump as high as he could, and it was still about 3 yards high. But he sailed on quite a few balls. Even the one that Payne, it went through his hands and went for the interception. You said earlier you can't put it all on CDRW. That's right, because if that hits and goes any other direction, that's an incomplete, probably out of bounds, as close to the sideline as it was. But again, it was high and it was a little bit outside, and that's why Payne didn't come down with it, because he's very sure-handed. Yeah. So it was just like he was off during his throws. So that's why he gets a C+. If he would have thrown one through the air and that ball wouldn't have been intercepted, it probably would have been a lot higher that you would have seen from him. We also had some yardage called back that would have been a little bit better because of the hold. It was a 23-yard pass you could add down there, and that would have put them down again at the 20. C+ for me could have been higher if he wouldn't have thrown high.
Yeah, it was a very, very average day and below average day passing, and the 2 touchdowns picks the score up a lot, but those were not that still doesn't mean you have to run the ball 14 times.
Right. Yeah.
At this stage in the season, and look what happened. He exited the game. It finally caught up to him. And if he stays in the game, well, obviously the 3 carries that Turner has probably end up being CDRW carries. So now you're pushing 20, and there's probably a few more sprinkled in there. It finally came to a head, man. And he did okay on the ground. He did okay through the air, but he was off. It was obvious. He was off. He misses Floyd. Yeah. He also missed Toby Payne down the seam on a play.
Yeah.
That would have been probably a 25-yard gain. So it just was not sharp.
You just jogged my memory. I didn't have this written down, but I didn't have the benefit of a rewatch. So I'm going off of my on-field memory here. There was a couple of times that I said, oh, he had so-and-so wide open. And so it wasn't a missed throw to them because he either threw to somebody else. Maybe it was a reception. It's not going to show up in a box score. But, there was a very brief double move, and I can't remember if it was Tamarez, but he was open and had a step. And if you just throw it over, no one else, it was over the middle. But it was a seam over the middle, just like with Payne, and that's what jogged my memory. He was gone, and you could have just thrown it to the end zone or as far as you want to and let him run under it because he had steps on the guy, just totally missed it. So again, that factored into the grade.
Yep. All right. So what about Zion?
I had a B. He came in and he went 8 for 9 or 7 for 8. I got to look for it here. 8 and 9. And the fumble, I am not going to hold against him because, brother, he was down. And the reason that they had to uphold that I believe is because they called it on the field a fumble. And I think had it been called not a fumble and they would have reviewed it, they would have said, hey, we got no real way to overturn this because the camera angle, you never could see a very good thing of the ball. But it looked from the players, the app player number 41, I believe it was, his motion of ripping was after the knee was down.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was. And so I'm assuming you got to watch that on the TV replay.
I did. So in the hotel room this morning, couldn't watch the whole game, but I went and looked for that fumble. I went and looked for a couple of key plays, and that was one that I did. And I watched that about 5 to 10 times, somewhere in that range. And at no time during every single replay, watching that 5 times, because each replay they showed it about 5 times, came back from a commercial break, they showed it, and at no point did it look like they had his knee was down before there was any motion of let me try to strip this ball. So I can't put that on him. This is a long way around me saying I'm giving him a B because I felt like he came in and did what he needed to do. And if they reverse that or don't call that on the field, even they don't call it a fumble, I think that you're looking at a very solid performance by Zion coming in under duress. He came in basically all but 12 seconds of the fourth quarter. Del Rio had the very first play of the fourth quarter is when he had the 9-yard rush on 3rd and 10 or 8-yard rush on 3rd and 9 is what it was, down to the 10-yard line. And that's where he gets hurt. He hobbles off the field. It's his ankle. They didn't say it on the broadcast, but when you're looking at the replay, that was another one that I looked at, was that and the blocked field goal that happened the very next play. He rolled it inverted, kind of like so with the toes going outward instead of the toes tucking in. Looks like he at least sprained his ankle, something to the right ankle. And Zion comes in and 8 of 9. He didn't light it up downfield with plays and everything, but he was getting passes that got first down. So they were moving the ball 3rd and whatever, and he would get the guy. 2nd and whatever, he would get the guy. He made a good run, gets some good yardage. I feel was down, so I'm not going to count that fumble against it.
So it was obviously called against him, right? And it stands in the scorebook. But I think you're 100% right. I think it's upheld because they called it a fumble on the ground. Right. And the announcers on the replays were looking for any moment to go, oh, there's the ball. There it is right there. But you can't tell. That could easily be a forearm or you know what I mean? A hand under the ball. You can't tell. There's no frame that shows you that that's a football. So I think it's bad luck for Marshall. That was called a fumble on real time on the field, and they had to uphold it because just as there was no video to show that there was a ball, there was no video to show that it wasn't a ball. And it's just a bad luck play. It's a bad luck play, and it sucks. So he did a good job in relief. But honestly, I think everybody is now in agreement, and this is nothing against him. He should have never had to be in a position to be in relief duty, right? Because it's over. There's a lot of carries that have been tallied by CDRW.
There are. However, on this play specifically, he had a guy open on the injury play is what I'm talking about. He had a guy open. I'm thinking it was Barbie. But I feel like he was thinking, okay, if I throw there, it's not far enough to get the first down, but you're still in field goal position from here, and he took it upon himself to run on a design pass play. He was back there, had a lot of time. So I also can't fault the coaches on that. You can for the 14 overall, but several of those 14s were him saying
same. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pass plays that turn into run plays.
Yeah.
Yeah. But overall, it was okay. It was just not enough to get it done. Offensively, what do you got for the Herd?
Man, I went back and forth. I've got C minus because you've got Floyd Lacey with a 12 catch, 134 yards. Could have been 13 for 157. You had a 238 yard rushes on here, but we talked about these penalties. We talked about overthrowing for first downs. We talked about overthrowing a gimme touchdown, a wide open touchdown, and everything. I could go lower, but it's hard to when you rush for 238 against a very good rush defense. The best thing that App does on defense was rushing defense coming into this game. So I have to go C minus and say, man, the rushing did a lot, and Floyd Lacey did a lot. Joshawn Barbie did a lot. It could have been a lot worse because there were times early in the game, you mentioned it, 3 quick touchdowns. Later in the game, totally disappeared. 2 fumbles, even though you can't, again, say, yes, that was a definitive fumble, that, in effect, lost the game, and it's just this is one of those that the haves and the have-nots, when they were on, they were on. When they were bad, they were bad.
Yeah. I'm going to try my best this week to put the blame where the blame goes. Like I've caught myself, like chastising offense when it's actually coaching that it should have been, and so you had some guys that had great individual days. Floyd had a great individual day. Joshawn had a great individual day. And that's really about it. There were some great plays that were made by other guys. Tamarez had a couple of good plays. Antoine Roberts had a couple of good plays. CDRW had a couple of good runs. I mean, he found the end zone twice. But overall, as a team effort, they just freaking disappeared execution-wise in the second half, did not convert a third down. I mean, you can't just be like, well, that's on coaching. No, you got to execute the plays, right? And they did not execute the plays when they needed to in the second half of that game. So C minus is completely fair. How about defense?
So defense, I got a B plus. You talked about those 3 and outs and the 4 and out, which was a 3 and out plus a 4th down stop. They came up big when they needed to. They also had some penalties that we talked about on here. That one was inconsequential. 2 others were 15-yarders that helped move them into some positions. One for a touchdown, one for a field goal, I believe, without going back through my notes. We had at times we had a lot of QB pressure, but we did not have the big sack that we needed. We had no forced turnovers, so not a lot of impact plays, 2 sacks and no turnovers. So I've got them at a B plus because of what they did, only giving up 134 through the air, which this was against a pass-happy team based on what they'd done before. But you also gave up 176 on the ground without factoring in that 34 at the end, when you take that into account. So it could go down to a C even, but I've got them at a B plus because there were times that they made the stops that they need to give us the ball right back, and then the offense just did not come through. Yeah. So I feel like had the offense come through, we would have been talking more about the defense setting up the offense, giving those 3 and outs, if that makes sense on why I'm going that high.
No, it does. And I think the defense, by and large, in this game did their job. They did. They were able to bottle up drives at times. They were pretty dominant at times, and they allowed during that stretch, they were effective enough that when the offense was clicking, we jumped out and took a lead and extended a lead, and then the half ended, and then the offense didn't help them out anymore. But the defense did a pretty good job. Obviously, the biggest glaring thing was there was no gaudy, nasty-looking chunk play touchdown.
Right.
That's a huge stride for a team in Game 11 that had needed to put something on that wound. And they were able to keep that from happening in this one. I don't care that there were, weapons missing from this App State offense. They still had to go out, line up, and stop these ugly plays from happening, and they did that. So fair grade. Fair grade. They needed some complementary football from the offense, and they didn't get it in the second half of the game. And even when they did get a little bit of it, the damn field goal was blocked. So what are you going to do? Special teams, what do you got for those guys?
I got a C plus. It was pretty average down the middle. You know, you had 129-yard return from Turner Bradshaw, and then a 21, so 25-yard average, which where does that put you? Right, if you would have taken a touchback. We had a 6-yard punt return by Lacey, 6 yards. Another one where he decided to let it go because it looked like it was going to bounce out of bounds. It rolls all the way to the 1-yard line for a 71-yard punt, which put us in a bad situation. We had a field goal, but it was a chip shot. We had a field goal that was blocked, and whether you say that he kicked it too low or our offensive line allowed the guy to get too much of a push against him, or if the guy just made a great play, because we talked about the defensive line and how they were with batted balls for quarterbacks. So he got up, that big man got up really big, number 93, to get up there and block that. And then also in the punt game, Nathan Totten looked his usual solid self. He had one that was really long. And he had one that was a lot shorter, 34 yards, I believe, than he's average. So you're looking right there in the middle. I put him at a C plus.
Yeah, I think the thing that really sticks in my craw is the blocked field goal.
Yeah.
At this point, it's not whether or not Quinn's putting enough leg behind it. Like, he's not worried about, kicking it low or kicking it high or none of that kind of stuff. He just kicks the dog shit out of the ball, I think. But they mentioned on the broadcast that that's now the second field goal that particular App player had blocked this season. So he's got a knack for it, obviously. Yeah. And when you watch the replay, man, he was
up. He was up.
Shot the gap, and it was, there's nothing left to be done. He did his job, and it was, I can't put it on Quinn, so I have to put it on the linemen that were responsible for putting a body on him.
And whoever did it, though, they're all part of the special teams.
Right,
That's who we're grading,
Yes, but ultimately that also is the difference in the game. See, there were a lot of differences in the game.
Right.
That's why you can't point to any one guy and go, well, it was him, it was him, it was him.
Yeah, we talked about 5 already.
You kick that field goal, and it's a 1-point victory.
Yeah.
And at that point, the 2 fumbles don't matter.
Yeah.
But still, it doesn't matter. It was a rough day. I was the uncharacteristic short punt from Totten was kind of surprising, but he bounced back and was his normal self and had some pretty good punts. He had one that just got into the end zone. He was unable to get that to check up where he needed it to. I think if it checks up on the 2 instead of the 1, then one of our gunners probably gets to it and downs it, but it trickles into the end zone. So it was also a bunch of bad luck plays for Marshall. Yeah. The tipped interception, the punt that goes into the end zone, the fumble that's called a fumble on the ground or on the field during the play. It's a lot of that. Coaches, what do you got?
C-. Not disagree with what a lot of people are saying online from various fans on Twitter. I didn't look on Facebook or anything like that. I had a big long drive back, so I wasn't on social media a lot. But I did see a lot last night after the game while I was getting dinner. And I think everyone is 100% justified to be totally upset over this loss and say that this is unacceptable. I think it's fair to say that this is at least the 3rd game, could be more, but at least the 3rd game that we should have won that we did not win. I think Coastal is one of those, like, you lost by enough that you could say, well, yeah, still everything happened. Yeah, we should have won that game, but there were 3 now that we have lost by a total of -1, -3, and -2. So help me out here, 2 and 3, 5, 6 points in 3 games that we've lost. And I think everybody's justified. So I'm not talking about that. I'm also saying that we traveled well to Boone and everybody was well behaved there. I didn't see, people trying to instigate things with other fans or things like that. I'm giving them a C right in the middle, because online I saw too many of fire that person, or praising someone for how well they've been running and then basically talking trash because they fumbled and everything. And I get, maybe you're watching the game and it's the heat of the moment and, emotions are high and things like that. Put the phone down, give it a couple of minutes, collect yourself, then tweet. Don't put something out there where you're dogging players or coaches or something like that just because a game was lost. Ultimately, it's a game. Now, do we love that? Yes. Do we want to win every game? Yes. Are you justified for being mad that we lost this game? Yes. All of that can be true, but you don't have to react the way you are. Just keep in mind when you're posting these things that all the recruits that follow Marshall fans, or the players that could portal in here that follow Marshall fans,
Or
the
out of
parents,
here.
yeah, we're out of here, and the parents of the players,
Yeah.
and the coaches themselves. And, we've talked about it trending in a bad direction for us getting a bad reputation amongst the fans for how we treat other fans and talk to other fans only online. Not everybody down at App said, man, we want to give you guys that are down here the most hospitality we can get, because when we've gone up there, they were talking about trips from the 90s. They were talking about trips from 2020, 2022, and 2024. They kept talking about all this. It's like, when we go up there, I've not seen so much class and everything. But then you see what we're doing on Twitter, and it gives you pause when you say, I wonder how this is looking to potential recruits. I wonder how this is looking to our players and our coaches and all that. Give it a rest, man. Give it a rest. That's all I'm saying.
Well, somehow we got twisted because I asked you for a coach grade and we ended up on a fan grade. So
did you give me coaches? I'm sorry.
But still,
I thought I already answered coaches.
No, we went from special teams. I said, how about coaches? And then we started on a fan grade, because I didn't say anything about coaches. I have points that I want to say, but
give me an F then, because I was
it's all right. It's all right.
Yeah, I'm an F as a podcaster. Coaching, I had C minus.
Okay.
I do not agree with.
No, you did say that, but we somehow got into a fan explanation. But
I don't know. Maybe I'm in a food coma from all the stuff that I ate.
All right.
But I have a C minus for the coaches, and I do not agree with what a lot of people are saying is when it was 4th and 1 from the 10 and we had the block field goal. You kick a field goal there, not only does ultimately would that have won the game when you're looking at that, but in the fourth quarter, that still has you up, right? Yeah. And you've got an entire quarter. That was 14 minutes and 48 seconds left in the fourth quarter. This wasn't a decision of, man, we got to do this right now. There's only 2 minutes left. There's an entire quarter of football left, and you're still up. And I feel like the block makes people go, and this is part of the fan grade too, but this is where people use, hindsight and say, well, it didn't work, so I'm going to complain, and we should have done this. Okay, what do you say if you have a chip shot field goal from a guy who just tied the season record for field goals in a season, had made 13 straight field goals at that time, has been just lights out here recently and had gotten a groove? Everybody's talking about what a weapon he is. He's good from 55 plus, all this stuff. And you've got one from the 7, it was the 10, so it would have been a 27-yard field goal attempt. I mean, that's about as gimme as you can get. And again, at that time, you're up. And they're talking about that lost the game, and that's a bad coaching decision. Coach addressed it after the game, and he said Carlos was hurt. And, had he not been hurt, he felt like throwing a new quarterback in there as the first play, you're coming in cold, and hey, we got to get 1 yard on 4th down. So I don't agree with that. I do think, again, we've gotten into the too many runs by your quarterback, not enough runs by so-and-so. We're killing them on the ground. Why not keep doing that? Run some more clock because you're up. And it's one of those, you keep controlling the clock. You keep getting the first downs with Joe Sean Barbie, Antoine Roberts, things like that. So coaching does not get a free pass. But I've seen too many people that are saying, let me put my coaching hat on. Oh, I would have gone for it on that 4th and 1 with 14 minutes and 48 seconds left in the game, all because they saw that the field goal didn't get it. Now, they could have been saying, why not go for it? Why not go for it? What do you say right there when it could have been a chip shot and they decide to go for it and they bring in Zion Turner and they don't get it and App gets the ball and they get to go down the field? What does everybody say right there?
They say, well, you had Lorcan Quinn sitting right there.
That's right.
Who's good from 50 plus.
That is right. Yeah. That is right. So how can you say just because it failed, that you say, oh, that's a horrible coach. Can we fire a coach before his first season is over? I saw crap like that, man, and you cannot do that. You cannot go there when a guy makes a good play. We just talked about it. It's not the first time he did that. It's not like this guy was a bum and he came in and that was the only play he's done all year and somehow he blocked it because the coach went for a field goal when you shouldn't have. Brother, that's where you go for a field goal when you got that much time to go. And I'm just going to look here and see, because I've got to go back and see what the actual score was. Let me see.
At the time of the missed field goal?
At the time of the blocked field goal,
it was 24-23. Marshall was up
24-23. So we're up. That makes it 27-23. You go in there and you don't get the touchdown, and you're still at 24-23. You're at the same place right here, but you had a chance to get 3 more. If you do get it, you're up 31-23. If you get it, if you get the extra point. Mm-hmm. And everything, but it's not a gimme. It's not. Otherwise, why wouldn't the coach just gone for it if it was a gimme? It's not. So I think there's too many people, and I'm rambling, but there's too many people saying because of the block punt, that was bad. Because you put Michael Allen in and he fumbled, that's bad. He's been great. You just talked about how underutilized the guy has been. How explosive. I saw people saying he deserves better than this. He deserves more carries than this. Look how good. He got like 8 yards on the play. App State's defense, 2 different guys, just made a heck of a football play, doing what they needed to do, ripping the ball out. And if it were different and Marshall was the guy or the team that had 2 guys do it to an App State player, you wouldn't say, oh, App State shouldn't have given it to that guy. They should have given it to the other guy because, oh, I know for a fact he wouldn't have fumbled. And you would have talked about what a great defensive play our 2 guys did, stripping the ball when they did. That's exactly what they needed to do to win the game. That's exactly what they did, because if not, we're driving right down. We're getting a field goal or a touchdown. We win the game. Mm-hmm. And they did what they needed to do. That's not a coaching thing. It wasn't like if they wouldn't have put Allen in, there wouldn't have been a fumble. It's not like the guy's been a fumble machine all game long, all year long, anything like that. It is what it is. The play happened. App State made a good play. We just did not. After we got the first down, by the way. We got the first down and then it got stripped. So it's not all on the coaches. C- for that. Yes, they could have done some other things, but I don't think this is a situation where the coaches just absolutely gave the game away. There were times when we did not convert on a wide open touchdown, a holding call that took back a touchdown, and a play where we got the first down, but we tried to make more yards and it took away the first down that had to put Allen in there and burn one of our timeouts. Mm-hmm. So I don't think that's mismanaged coaching. I think that the coaching was not 100%. It wasn't an A grade, but it was not overwhelming. Oh, 0 out of 100. Everybody ought to be fired. It just wasn't.
No, it wasn't that bad, but there are some things that stick out to me like that I still can't understand. I can't understand it, and I'm done trying to understand it. Like inexplicably subbing in Zion Turner early in the game when the offense is rolling and clicking. he was in and CDRW wasn't. And it didn't seem like he was injured or dinged up. And somebody asked me about that on Twitter. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm trying to figure that out too. I'm thinking maybe that there was an initial ding, right? Like that's when something got tweaked and he had to come out, maybe get retaped up or something, like had to miss a couple of plays. But that derailed the offense a little bit because we were in a groove. And now you changed the quarterback. I'm not saying Turner derailed the offense. I'm saying that substitution took away the groove that we were in. Number two, what the hell were we doing to close out the first half when you get roughly a minute? Yeah. You just give up an 8-play, 75-yard touchdown drive, and you have roughly a minute to try to get something done. You make one quarterback run, and then you're like, screw it. We'll just run. We'll just let the clock run out. Like, all right, man. You can't have the kid that everybody's talking about that can bang one from 60 and not make an effort to at least try to get in that area to close out the half to do that.
100% agree with that.
That to me is timid football, and you can't play timid football at this stage in the game. That I know I'm not the only fan that was screaming to the top of their lungs like, what the hell are we doing to close out this half?
I 100% agree with that.
Then the only other huge gripe that I have is that it is quite obvious, and the stats back it up, that Joshawn Barbie had the hot hand in this game, and he gets 10 carries in this game. Right. If ever there was a game to where you put the ball in that guy's gut 20 times, it was this past game.
100%.
He was averaging 10 yards a carry, and he got 10 freaking carries.
Yeah.
We're 11 games in, man. Why are we still doing this? Like, let me try to outsmart this guy and that guy. Just go with the hot hand. Some games it's Barbie, some games it's Allen, some games it's CDRW. Why are we continually trying to out finesse ourselves at times? Like, I think by now, every fan in the land that's a Herd fan goes, hey, that guy's the hot hand this week. Let's go with him. Maybe you have two. Maybe it's Roberts and Barbie. Maybe it's Roberts and Allen. Maybe it's Allen and CDRW. Hell, maybe it's Floyd. Like, you took the ball out of the hands of the hottest runner on the field, and he still had a 100-yard day, and you lost by 2 freaking points.
Yeah.
It's 11 games in. We can't continually keep seeing this stuff and not say something about it. You can't continually just allow it. Okay.
Sorry, I'm sorry. I thought you were done when I was trying to hop in there, but I went back and looked when Zion came in, and it looked to be 2 plays. And it was after they punted after a 3-and-out. There was 6 minutes, 24 seconds left in the first half. He came in. The first play was a 6-yard run by him, and they got him with a face mask. So it ended up being a 21-yard thing. The very next play, Michael Allen got a 6-yard loss, but we still gained 15 yards when he was in for those 2 plays. Del Rio was right back in after that. So I don't know if he had to go out, get taped, whatever it had to be.
That's what I'm speculating.
But I can't even put that on coaching, because why would they, if that were a thing, like, why not give him that entire series? You know what I'm saying?
Because I'm putting it on coaching because I don't know if that's what happened. Maybe that was the plan. We're going to try to catch him off guard with Zion for a couple of plays. I'm hoping that it was one of those like, hey, man, you got to get in there. I got to get retaped. But I don't know that's what happened. So what else can I deduce? Because we were rolling, and then all of a sudden we weren't rolling.
So but they took him out like as soon as like that 6-yard loss on the very second play.
Yeah.
And as soon as that happened, Del Rio's right there to run back in. I just don't think that was some kind of coach trickery that they put him in to do anything. Otherwise, they're probably going to do only one play, or they would have ran him again a second time or something. I don't feel like they would have taken him out after he gets 1 carry for 6 yards and a face mask made it 21. So I would put that on that just had to have been you have to go in because he didn't play again until Del Rio got hurt.
Right. And I'm speculating that's what happened, but since it wasn't addressed, nobody knows. It could have been by design. Who the hell knows? But still, we already talked about fans. There were some ready to jump off the cliff. I saw some pretty harsh things that were said online. You know, I think you know who they are. You know, the usual suspects that are trying to go viral in the fan base each and every week, and they're going to say what they're going to say. But whatever. Overall, what do you got for the trip, the game, the whole thing?
Well, as we talk about, a lot of my grade comes about the road trips that I get to make. If I was watching at home like you were, it would be a vastly different grade, and we talked about how that is. But overall, I'll give it a D, and that was even anchored by the road trip, the great food, the fans from app, and the total vibes before the game and at the game and things like that. It was that big of a disappointment with the game that it goes all the way down from an A plus to a D.
Mm-hmm.
So you separate them, and I'm going to say the road trip and all the vibes and the interactions that I had with fans, it was 100 out of 100. It was an A plus. The game was that bad for me about leaving a taste in my mouth. But still, you don't see me going around saying, you know, we ought to fire everybody and this player's a bum and all that stuff, because exactly. I'm not a roller coaster, man. I'm also, after we win, we don't say we're going to beat the 85 Bears and we'll never, you know. But it was a D. I mean, it soured much of the season for me, because you win that game, you're 6-5. You have an opportunity to win against a Georgia Southern team that's struggling and shows some weaknesses, especially on defense, that we had a chance to go 7-5, beat our floor prediction of 6-6, and have a chance to go 7-5, guarantee yourself a bowl at 7-5, maybe win a bowl and go 8-5. None of that can happen now. Mm-hmm. You're hoping that you win next week to go 6-6 to back into a bowl, if there are not too many teams with bowl eligibility versus bowls. Now, with 185 bowls that they usually have, I'm sure that we'll get in at 6-6, but you can't get an 8-5 season now. Best you can hope for is a 7-6 if you make a bowl and you win the bowl.
Yeah, overall, it was just, I was tired of seeing more of the same. We're again finding ways to lose games that we shouldn't, that we should win, and at least 3. I'm saying 4 games, because you win. You don't turn the ball over 5 times at Coastal, you probably win that game. You know,
you do.
But you lose. You found a way to lose Louisiana. You found a way to lose Missouri State, and now you found a way to lose App State. You found a way to lose next week, and I'm not the guy calling for this, but I don't know how you don't evaluate your staff and go, it's going to look different next year. We found too many ways to lose games, and I think if I'm the head coach, I have to. That's why you make the big bucks. You have to make the hard decisions, and I'm not sure you do that even if you win next week. You probably go, you know what? We pissed away 4 games. We're lucky we didn't piss away 5. So I'm not getting that. I'm not going to put the cart in front of the horse. I will say overall, the grade for me was absolutely a D- watching from the living room. The only thing that was good about it was I was watching with my son. That was it. And we were chopping it up, talking about, you know, how awesome it was to see Daquan Smith back on the field after.
Yes, it was. And he performed at a very high level.
And put 10 tackles on the board. What, he was everywhere. So it was great to see it. So that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, you know. And we're talking about, like, we're reminiscing. That's what it is. Like, remember when I was this old and we went to this game, and I'm like, yeah, I remember that. So it was more about the fellowship during the watching than it was the actual game. But who's your offensive MVP? This one's running long. Let's try to get this one out of here.
It's Floyd Lacey with 12 receptions, 134 yards. He also had 23 called back on what was called a reception on the field. It would have been reviewed, but just like the fumble from earlier, it was called a reception on the field. They would have had to overturn it. It's Floyd Lacey with a very special shout out to Joan Barbie. The guy was running like a maniac, and you're right, he should have had double the carries that he had.
Yeah, Joan Barbie is my offensive MVP. Even on just 10 carries, he found the end zone. He was doing the hard work. And if he'd have gotten the ball half a dozen more times, he could have had a 150-yard rush day. And if he gets it 20 times, he might be pushing 2 bills with 3 scores. You know what I mean? He was having a great day. And I'm not going to say they robbed him of it, but he didn't get the opportunity to showcase that hot hand, but he's still my offensive MVP. Who's your defensive guy this week?
It's Parker, man. He got the only 2 sacks, 2.5 for tackles for loss. 15 tackles overall. What was that? 6 solo?
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. But anyway,
Yeah.
dude was all over the place. So he's my defensive MVP.
Mine too. Easily the best all around day. 15 tackles, 6 solo, 2.5 tackles for loss, 2 sacks on the day. But God, how can you not go and shout out Wody?
Wody was everywhere, like you said.
I mean, leaving the way that he did and tweeting us, all good, can't wait for the next one. And we speculated, would he play? Are they going to let him sit for a week? And then he was a game time decision. And boy, what a decision. You put him in there and he plays lights out, probably his best game of the season, to go along also with Cam Smith, who also has 10 total tackles. Special teams, who's your guy?
It's kind of by default Totten, because, you miss a field goal by Quinn, whether it's his fault or not, it goes down as a miss. And ultimately we would have won the game if we had that 3 points on the board in a 2-point loss. Totten had some great punts. He only had the one little hiccup at 34, and that still brought him all the way down to like 44%. Yeah. So he has just killed it all year long. But special shout out for Quinn for tying the single season record at Marshall. One of many that he already has in his small career here so far.
Yeah, one more and he stands alone atop the hill. And if that one comes from 50 plus, he's going to stand alone atop that hill as well. He's got one more game guaranteed to be able to get that opportunity. I think he'll have an opportunity to kick one, but I'm with you. By default, kind of, it's Nathan Totten, and it's not even his best game of the year. So the block really, 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 really hurt. Georgia Southern is next. It's senior day for the Herd in a must-win one-game season. That's where we are with this one. We owe them one anyway after the collapse from last year. Now they've got to come to Huntington, where we need to put on a show for the fans. They need to show that this team has moxie enough to go out and win one game when they have to win one game. Russ, you got any final words on this one before we get out of here?
Just any people from App State that may be watching this recap, thank you for the hospitality down there. Special shout-outs to Armchair Mountaineers and everyone they introduced us to. But everyone that I talked to was, talking about times from the 90s. There was a player there from the 94 and 95 seasons, and he walked into the game with us, the final little stretch, and he was talking about his playing days and against us and what it means for App and Marshall to continue this rivalry. I hope we play them until the boatman comes. I love this rivalry. It's great. Thanks for the hospitality, and I can't wait to repay that when everybody comes up here. And I'm already looking forward in 2 years, if that's the way the schedules continue to go back down to Boone.
Yeah, I've got to say, too, that just because of a lot of the things that we've said here, or I've said here particularly, I can't speak for Russ, might sound like disparaging towards the App State program and team. It's not. I have a lot of respect for the program and the fan base. I've had nothing but good interactions from people from App State, and I look forward to one day being able to make the trip, 1 year, being able to make the trip to Boone. It's just I'm so damn frustrated that we let this one get away. I'm not going to say that you didn't earn it, because you did. You went out and made the plays you had to make to win the game, and we did not. And that's a story that we've been singing and telling in a movie we've been watching all season long. I'm tired of seeing games where our opponents make the plays they need to make to win the game, and we do not. So appreciate everybody's interaction this week, and, congrats on the win, but bring on Georgia Southern. We need an ass whooping. We need to hand out an ass whooping, like, badly. Take us out of here, man.
Yeah, so whether you see us at the Joan, whether you see us at the Vet, or if you see us on the seed lot prepping for this Georgia Southern game, the last game of the season, going in to get that bowl eligibility victory, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. Love it or hate it, the old Mountain Cute is here to stay. We'll see you next week. Later.